Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Let me welcome all of you to yet another edition of Cradle webinar series. As all of you know, that in every edition of Cradle webinar series, we bring a discussion to you, an intriguing discussion to you about something which matters to all of us, which has an influence on our lives. And through these webinars, we try to answer many questions that concern our personal life, our family, social, and professional lives. We try to find answers to complex questions, solutions to difficult problems. Today, we have decided to have a discussion on a very interesting topic. This is not a new topic. We are not going to hear about it for the first time. This topic is about stress, and this is about how to deal with stress. My dear um, audience, the viewers from all over the world, you might be wondering, why is this topic again? There are thousands of blogs which have been written on this topic. There have been hundreds of books that have been written on this topic. There are thousands of training programs run by corporates to enable their employees to deal with stress. Why yet another discussion on stress? My dear friends, this time you are going to look at stress from a very different perspective. I agree there are thousands of artifacts available on how to deal with stress, but the topic, the discussion on stress management refuses to die down. This is relevant today. And the reason why it refuses to die down is primarily because most of these attempts to deal with stress probably are at a superficial level. Today, we're going to attack this topic from a very, very different aspect. And this time, we're going to look at how to deal with stress from a spiritual perspective. And why from a spiritual perspective? Because spirituality tries to unravel the root cause of everything. And we want to strike at the roots this time. So we have an eminent personality who brings in immense knowledge, who, of course, by profession is a practitioner in the business world, but also who is a very highly well known and ardent spiritual practitioner. My dear friends, I would now bring our panelist this evening for all of you, and I'm going to introduce him in the next few seconds. So, can I have our esteemed guest on the screen, please?
Jai Guru.
Dear viewers, we have a very eminent personality. Is none other than Mr. Asis Basu, who is, by profession, is a healthcare consultant, a very senior consultant in that space. But his bigger introduction is that he is a spiritual practitioner. He is a Sahapratirtik of Satsang. He's an ardent devotee of his spiritual master, Sri Sri Thakur Nukul Chandra. He accepted Sri Sri Thakur Nukul Chandra as his spiritual guide at the very early age of 11 years. And since then, he has been following and he is committed to the cause of spreading the message of being and becoming of his master. Personally, I have had the privilege of knowing him for last 14 years. I had the opportunity to visit him in his residence in the United States. So, my dear audience, today we have Mr. Asis Basu. Your panelist today is senior healthcare business and data consultant and a spiritual practitioner. Mr. Basu, welcome to our webinar today.
Jai Guru. Jai Guru. I'm delighted to be here. I have no words to express my sheer joy to enable myself to arrive here in this destination of, I know that Surjo Bhai, you live in learning and development vertical, and I just have to tell you the audience, that whatever Surjoda said, he did not probably um, want to overstate, but he actually overstated everything. I want to say that he was hearty in his approbation, but he was largely lavish in praise. Um Christianity promotes the word praise in a beautiful sentence. They say three words actually. They say praise the Lord all the time. আমরা যেমন বলি ঠাকুরের কথা বলো, যাজন করো, just like that they say praise the Lord. In this society, the society that is bombarded with the specific hurdles that we are talking about today, the hurdle is none other than uh, stress. How to get rid of that, how to eliminate that, how to reduce it, how to control it, how to manage it. This has been, like Surjo Bhai suggested, has been um, present in multitudes of seminars, multitudes of artifacts, multitudes of, it's so prevalent in the society. I was telling the other day a friend of mine that $25 billion is how much Americans spend to control and manage their stress. But thank you very much, Surjo Bhai, to bring me here. I know that I won't be able to satisfy your hunger about the subject because I am not an expert on the subject. But I will see what I can talk about it in my little fragmented manner. Jai Guru.
I'm amazed by your humility. Audience, we have a personality today who combines humility and great wisdom. And without much ado, I would like to get into the discussion straight away with my first question for Mr. Basu. Mr. Basu, I think you talked about some very mind-boggling, interesting statistics about how much United States is spending on healthcare just to deal with stress. I was going through some studies by Gallup recently, and they mentioned that 8 out of 10 Americans have some stress related concerns. The study also tells us that about 300 billion US dollars are lost in productivity at the workplace because of stress related concerns of employees. When we come to India, the number is not very encouraging. 1 in 2 employees at the workplace complains about workplace related stress, and 60% of the employees at the workplace at some point in time have thought about quitting their jobs because they find it very difficult to deal with stress. Mr. Basu, our parents did not talk about stress. I don't think we discussed stress in our childhood. So is stress a modern day thing? Is it a new phenomenon? What would you like to say on that? Uh, Mr. Basu, I think you are on mute. We can't hear you.
I think it is an age-old phenomenon. We have been a victim of this for ages. I think from since the inception of civilization. Um, Lately, it has been some kind of enculturization impregnated in our society that if you are not stressful, you are not doing your job. If you look like loosey goosey, happy go lucky type of guy, that you are always blissful, you are always healthy looking, you have no stress, then something tells others that you are not doing a justice to your job. You are not, if you are not stressed, you are not good enough for the enterprise. Unfortunately, the enterprise controls us. When I was in American corporate business side, at the trail end of my careers, for a couple of years, I became a solution architect. And the guy who hired me, um, he told me that I will not give you any project. Instead, I will ask you to write something for us. So he said that write something so that how we can developmentally improve ourselves, improve our workforce and everything. But believe me, I was hired as a solution architect, but my immediate boss told me that I want you to spend for the next 6 weeks to write an article, because he was so impressed with what I talked to him about Sri Thakur. He was
Wow.
impressed with Thakur's comments and remarks, that he told me that he keep writing about that. So, I actually chose to write about stress. So I am, in a way, thankful to Shurjo Bhai to bring that, um, subject into today's cradle. That whatever we are following in this life, um, it used to be, we tend to succumb today to disorientation and incoherence. It used to be the same way 500 years ago or even 5,000 years ago. The very root of our problem lies in the fact that we remain detached with the source of love, the embodiment of love. Since love is the only entity that we cannot live without, there is a growing need for me to embrace something that is superlative to me, superlative to you, and superlative to every one of us. In the past, we at the very least were attached to our parents and superiors, and thus we could strike at least a meaningful and rational adjustment to our harmonious existence. Today, we are in crossroads of such a derogatory evolution that we have forsaken our parents and their loving dominance in our lives in many instances. Guru Ramdas, who used to de facto rule the entire country from Maharashtra, being the love lord, being the master of Shivaji, the emperor. In one of his verses that our master, Sri Sri Thakur Anukul Chandra, always used to refer, the very famous quote is, Devota bhulile, dharma bhulile, dukkha asya dhare. In other words, it means when we forsake him, when we forsake dharma, the existential pursuit of being and becoming, then sufferings come and rule over us. So, my answer to your question is that yes, we used to have that, and yes, we still have that, but on a solution, Shashi Thakur is striking a phenomenal solution, which I believe that I will get a question like that. And if not, I will I would love to talk about that if I am permitted to do so. Jai Guru.
Uh, Brilliant, brilliant. I think you talked about the fact that in the past we were attached to our parents. We had admiration, love for our parents. We were attached to the guru. And I think you really talked about something very, very important and profound. You said, I think if you are attached to somebody who's superior and also the source of love, if you're inundated in the vital energy which is executed by love, why should we really worry about anything? Taking the discussion forward on the topic of stress management, I would like to ask you my next question. What do you see as the impact of stress, effects of stress on human mind, on human beings?
You know, it is terrible. Actually, Srisi Thakur has a Bengali verse that says, "Monta dusto holei janis, রোগের আথাল হয় ওইটাকে তুই এড়িয়ে চলিস করবি ব্যাধি জয়." So before we get a disease physically, our mental stratum of our being, it gets somehow disturbed. Stress is the psychological, physiological, and behavioral response by an individual when they perceive a lack of equilibrium between the demands placed upon them and their ability to meet those demands, which over a period of time leads to ill health. Thakur said, why don't we do this? Why don't we make equilibrium feasible in our life? Thakur, in Bengali verse, said again, which I want to continue because to me it is so relevant. To strike the equilibrium in our life, Sri Sri Thakur suggested, পিতায় শ্রদ্ধা মায়ে টান সেই ছেলেই হয় সাম্যপ্রাণ. In other words, to achieve equilibrium in a soul, in a boy or in a girl, the respect and reverence for the father, biological father, and the magnetic pull between the mother and the offspring, that's what begets the equilibrium. Without equilibrium, what happens? The behavioral diseases, the behavioral incongruities, they start impacting our life. Stress is one factor that impacts our life in a 360-degree manner. There is no way out. Unless we change our lives, unless we want to pursue a life when we become followers of a benevolent destination. Sri Thakur বললেন in a গ্রন্থ, ঠাকুর বলছেন চর্যা সুক্ত, ঠাকুর বলছেন যে আমাদের গন্তব্য হলো ঈশ্বর প্রাপ্তি, ধারণ পালনই সম্বেক সিদ্ধ ব্যক্তিত্ব. In third line, Sri Thakur says, আর তার উপায় হচ্ছে আচার্যে সক্রিয় অনুরক্তি. So the active allegiance and the active attachment to someone called Acharya, who is actually embodied with all the practice of life, the practice that has been manifested in his life in a cohesive manner, so pervasively and so expansively that whenever we go to him, we see the onuranan or the reverberation of practice. That's why when we go to our Guru Dham, to our Acharya Nath Mandap, By the time we look at the Acharya Nath Mandap, we, we bow our obeisance, we offer our obeisance, and from that moment, we have an electric charge in our life. We do not have any stress, believe me. I have been going to Thakurbari, to our shrine in Deoghar, now in Jharkhand, used to be in Bihar, in India, 35 years of my life after I graduated from engineering in University of North Carolina in Charlotte. So in these 35 years, I have probably visited Thakurbari more than 50 times. And every time I go there, I come back impact free. I have no stress, nothing. I become positively charged with the vibration of Sri Sri Thakur. Sri Sri Thakur gave us this immense ability to remain attached to the source of love. And this is actually an achievable goal in our audience, whoever you are and wherever you are. You should ask your next person, if he is a brother from Satsang, if he is a mother from Satsang, and how to be attached in the blissful journey of life. So stress will not be able to impact us anymore. Over to you.
Wonderful. I think very wonderful perspective. And what I can really decipher from what you're saying is when we have love and attachment to the superior beloved, we have a sense of surrender. And when you have a sense of surrender, when we surrender to the superior beloved, we have no reasons to be worried about anything. And this is a very powerful, tried and tested approach. And Mr. Basu, you have experienced it yourself in the last so many decades. And this is really really profound. And I remember, I think a saying of Sister Thakur, uh, which I think I got reminded about it when you quoted him. He said, "Happiness and sorrow both are modes of mind, and if we want, we can drive away sorrow." And it's the superior beloved, the source of love, who says that. To take this discussion forward, I would like to ask you the next question. My next question is, while we're talking about stress, and while you talked about how it can impact us and our lives, the next question is, can stress also be good sometimes? Or is it always harmful? If it has some good effects, what are these, Mr. Basu?
It's a very intelligent question. I do not know how to answer that, but I will try. Give it a shot. It will be a long shot, for sure.
Sure.
Well, I believe historically, stress can be our friend, and it has been our friend. One thing, while I was on the pursuit of this question, one thing comes to my mind that, for instance, if I loan some money from a credit agency just a person, a friend of mine, and I want to give his money back on Monday, from that point on, it creates a stress in my life. So, instead of making it a negative mechanism in my life, I can make it a positive mechanism, like Sri Sri Thakur suggested, that if you want to give the money back to your friend by Monday, try to give it by this Saturday, which is today. So I do not have, a natural derogatory reaction of stress being bad to my life. Instead, I can transform that bad element of stress into a good element of stress. So, what happens to my life then? I conquer, first of all, I conquer dilly dalliness. I conquer the ability to disregard delinquency. And I have the ability so that I can deliver something today that I am supposed to deliver day after tomorrow. This protective mechanism of stress, which is built in, that we can use to, to help my life so that I become a person of words. People will trust me. You know, our Acharya Dev, picture of whom you were seeing um, on the wall, he wrote me 34 letters in his life with his own handwriting. Out of that 34 letters, Sri Sri Dada, Param Pujyapad Acharya Dev, Sri Sri Dada, our love Lord, our living master, living ideal, he said in 4 letters that এমন ভাবে চলবি যাতে সবাই শ্রদ্ধা করে, বিশ্বাস করে আর ভালোবাসে. I used to always, um, you know, used to do nivedan to him that I believe that I have some kind of influence that is not 100% positively charged with Sri Sri Thakur's gospel or Sri Sri Thakur's doctrines. And he said, do the simple thing so that you will not have these kind of stress in your life. So one of the stresses that I was talking about, that returning my money to my creditor. The other thing that comes to my mind is if I can get rid of go-between from my life. Sri Sri Thakur said that go-between creates an untold amount of stress in my life. Why? Because of procrastination. I tend to forget what I am supposed to do day after tomorrow. And when that happens, it builds up a stress response in my life. So I cannot get rid of that building block. One little story from the life of Param Purush Sri Sri Thakur Ramakrishna Dev. He was by the Dakshineshwar temple, and there was a area called Panchaboti. That's where his residence was. So one day he wanted to go to the latrine from that residential Panchaboti to a different building for latrine in the middle of the night, in the middle of the winter. And as you know, Ramakrishna Dev did not used to wear any footwear. Juto porten na. And he barely had some kind of little chador around him. And by the Dakshineshwar temple, he had, we still have the Hugli Nodi or Hugli River. So when he was in the latrine, you know, he is a Shad Brahmin, so he takes up all his clothes, and after his excretion process was done, he cleaned himself thoroughly. He had a showered himself, and then he changed into his new clothing. And while coming to Panchaboti, he felt like he need to go back to the latrine, because he was in his own language যে আমার পেটটা এখনো বিষ করছে, আমি এখনো পুরো ক্লিয়ার হইনি, so I have to go back to the latrine. While he was thinking that, he said, "Oof, bhishon thanda." He thought it was very cold day, cold night actually. But he said that I must go to latrine because even if there is no excretion any further, but to get rid of me from any kind of go between, I must go. So he went there, he went to the latrine, nothing happened, no more excretion, but he said, আমার জীবন থেকে অনেক শঙ্কা চলে গেল। শঙ্কা মানে stress. So he could reduce his stress by depressing, in Sri Sri Thakur's language, Sri Sri Thakur Anukul Chandra's language, by depressing go between. And by depressing go between, he could bring up his life into delight. So I think, yes, stress can be always used. And according to Sri Sri Thakur Anukul Chandra, any negative thing can be used as a positive thing. I'll tell you a quick little story about how stress can be helped. One day, Pandit Da, Krishna Prasanna Bhattacharya's oldest son, who used to read part all the Bengali books in Thakur Badi, he said to Babaida, our Acharya Deva's oldest son, ki, Dada, আমার সমস্ত দাঁত পড়ে গেছে. That means the dentist extricated all my teeth. Then Babaida quickly responded, like within a flash of a second. He said, খুব ভালো তো, এখন আপনি অনেক অক্সিজেন পাবেন. So you see, if Pandita would ask me, I would say, সত্যি তো আপনি কিছু খেতে পারবেন না. It will be tough for you to eat anything without a proper denture and all of that. And Babaida, that's why he is our Acharya. That's why we need a person of humongous experience that can elevate me to a special elevation from where there is no retreat. Because once I am the residents of the delighted world, আর ঠাকুর আরেকটা কথা বললেন খুব ভালো. ঠাকুর একবার বলেছিলেন যে আলোক রাজ্যের সব থেকে অসুখী প্রজা হওয়াও ভালো, কিন্তু তিমির রাজ্যের সব থেকে সুখী প্রজা হয়েও অন্তর্নিহিত সত্তার কোনো সুখ নেই. That means if I am the worst citizen, the most unhappy citizen of the delighted world, it is still better than the most happy person in the Timir Rajya or the kingdom of darkness. Over to you.
Oh, this is such a profound perspective. And I think the delighted world is an enlightening world. And that drives enlightenment in us. And I'm reminded of a message of Sister Thakur where he says, ignorance drives anxiety in man, and wisdom destroys confusion. I think with this discussion, slowly the layers of ignorance are slowly getting removed, and wisdom is emerging, and this is giving us more peace, because Sister Thakur says wisdom gives man peace. And and when you have peace, there is no reason as to why one should have stress. This is beautiful. Great discussion. Viewers, we are having a fantastic discussion, and Mr. Basu is sharing his enlightening thoughts based on the ideology of his spiritual master, Sri Sri Thakur Kol Chandra. In a few minutes, I will open it up for questions from the audience. After a couple of questions, so get ready with your questions. Mr. Basu, my next question to you is, we have heard so many strategies and techniques about stress management. We have also heard about meditation, but we believe many of these techniques, or the general perception is many of these techniques are difficult to apply, difficult to practice. Is there a simpler way out, Mr. Basu?
Mhm. Great question. I think, Sisi Thakur often used to talk about something called, in Sanskrit, it's called Shurat Shambheg. That means tendency towards unification. The tendency towards unification gives us the choice of being attached through my libido. So libido in the Western world is often misunderstood by the affinity or inclination or tendency for sexual urge. Sri Thakur said that is a blasphemic way of looking at that word. I want to define the word libido as tendency towards unification. So that way, that particular way of stress management, like anything else. And by the way, before he talks about management or control, he talks about prevention. Like in today's world, we are talking about how to cure yourself from coronavirus. Sri Thakur talked about how to cure myself from any disease, period, by following the divine principles of health and hygienic principles. There is a book, that book is called Shastha o Sadachar Sutra. Our Acharya Dev on September 15, 2020, lovingly reminded us to read that book every day and then to inculcate in our practice. See, we read Shastha Sadachar Sutra book. In America, we have also been able to translate the book by few brothers. And we read that English translation also. So we get to hear the Bani two times, one in Bengali and one in English. After that, we are, chalti chakki. We go to our kitchen without cleansing ourselves properly. We go to our kitchen having to come from outside without changing our clothes. We taste our food while we are cooking. Our food is being touched by multiple numbers of people. We are taking muri or some kind of finger foods. Many brothers or many sisters or many mothers are taking from one plate food from one common plate. Mothers are cooking even when they are under the influence of menstruation. Sri Thakur said, অন্তরুদ্ধ সঞ্চিত বিষ শনিত স্রাবে ধৌত হয় ছোঁয়া নাড়া স্পর্শ দোষে উহাই কিন্তু সঞ্চয়. So when we are contracting COVID-19, being a satsangi, I think my problem is that I am not following the divine principles of Thakur. And we are excusing ourselves to the greatest extent. If you ask a mother that why are you cooking, you are not supposed to cook because Thakur does not want you to cook, because poison is coming out of your fingers and entire body. You are not supposed to sleep with him. You are not supposed to cook for him or any member of the family. Why are you doing that? Her response would be, আর বলবেন না আমাদের বাড়ির দাদা, he does not know how to cook. So this is a self mechanism of defense. defending ourselves from, victimizing ourselves from not following Sri Thakur's principles. The ways of stress management, one of the greatest ways of stress management will be not to contract stress at all. I'm 68 years old. My friends everywhere in the country or everywhere in the world, I talk to them. I'm talking about they're non-initiated in Sri Thakur's holy name. They're worried. They're always worried. They're worried about their investment. They're worried about having to lose their children, having to lose their wife or spouse. I do not understand any of that. All I do is a little practice. My practice is not 100%. It's not even 10%. But even with that simple way, I have created this, ability to, if you want to call it stress management. The only difference is that the manifestation of stress used to be in a different dynamic in my life. And now what I see through Sri Thakur's eyes, I can annihilate the generation of stress in my system to begin with. I do not have it anymore in my life. Therefore, I do not need any anti-anxiety supplements. I do not need any prescription medications for management of stress. Fortunately, the only medications for anxiety that Sri Thakur gives us is making holy name and meditation. So meditation is keep thinking about something that I need to accomplish. And making holy name, making Naam, is a practice of repeating the holy name in a sustained blocks of time in a given day. Sri Thakur says, "Usha nishaye mantro sadhon, chola pheraye jop, jotha সময় ইষ্ট নিদেশ মূর্ত করাই তপ।" উষা মানে কি? না ডাকিয়াছে পাখি, ছাড়ে নাই বাসা, তাহার নাম উষা। See, if we piecemeal it, if we go to the stress management piece itself, Surya Prakash Bhai, we won't be able to make it. But if we want to take it holistically, that this golden practice of loving our Acharya, this golden practice of establishing Sri Thakur's principles and attaching more and more and more and more number of people, more and more number of men and women in Thakur's ideology is the only solution. Once Saint Peter, when he was not a saint, he was just a fisherman. He was on the Dead Sea. He was mending a fishing net. It was a village called Nazareth. In Nazareth, Jesus Christ was going with few followers of him. And from a distance, he said, "Hey, what are you doing? Tumi ki korcho?" So Peter bolchen, "I am mending my fishing net so I can go early morning for fishing." Then Jesus Christ said, "You do not have to ever fish again. Come unto me, I will make you fishers of men." যেরকম অর্জুন বলেছিলেন, when Kurukshetra was done, Kurukshetra war was complete, Arjun came to Sri Krishna. যে এবার আমি কি করব? Now I feel like unemployed. I have nothing to do. Tell me what I should do, Shakha. Then he said, "Hey Kunti Nandan, তুমি আমার কাজ করবে." Well, I used to do your work only. I killed so many of my relatives and elderlies, and everything you asked me to do, I was doing your job only, your work only. Then Sri Krishna said, তুমি এসব যা কাজ করেছো সব বাইরের কাজ করেছো। নাও ইউ উইল স্টার্ট মাই ইন্টারনাল ওয়ার্ক। তুমি এখন আমার কাজ করবে। বলছে কি সেই কাজ? তখন তিনি বললেন, ইন সংস্কৃত হি সেড, চিকিৎসু লোক সংগ্রহম। তুমি আমার জন্য লোক সংগ্রহ করো। Collect men and women for me. The same beck and call that our Acharya Dev has professed us with 35 million new initiations. By the way, for the sake of your knowledge of newcomers in this forum, 30 million initiates are already present in Sri Sri Thakur's satsang. Some of them have died, of course, in the natural cause of life. But new 35 million initiations need to happen very soon. And we can deliver it because, you know, when Param Purush asks something, Parama Prakriti already delivers it in a golden platter. So it is already delivered. If I am helpful for that cause, if I am helping that cause, day in and day out, I have to think about that. Then I will never have to take anti-anxiety pills, anti-anxiety supplements, and ways of stress management. I will see that my life will be delighted with absolute photons of light. Over to you. We cannot hear you. We cannot hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. Great narrative, Mr. Basu. I think I'm tempted to ask you many more questions, but I'll also have to give the audience a chance to ask their questions as well. I'll ask one last question, and then we'll open it up for audience questions. Building on what you said in the previous question, can stress be channelized to something good, something positive? If it is possible, what are the different ways we can do that, Mr. Basu?
Uh, you know, the Upanishad says that nanno pantha vidyate hoyonayo. That means there exists no other perceived way that we can solve our problem. Can you come again with the question?
Yes, my question was, can we channelize stress to something good?
Mm-hmm.
If
Okay,
yes, what may be the ways?
right. So one person came to Sri Sri Thakur, and Sri Sri Thakur was asking from that person who was doing the nivedan that আর কি প্রবলেম আছে, তোর আর কি সমস্যা আছে? So he kept saying that. Then Sri Sri Thakur said, আর কি সমস্যা আছে, আর কি প্রবলেম আছে? এরম করে Sri Sri Thakur spent, and he is such a seemingly irritating person. Other people thought he is an irritating person because he is wasting precious moments of Thakur's time, you know. But Sri Sri Thakur took so much of interest in him, and Sri Sri Thakur said যে পৃথিবীতে যত রকম ব্যাধি আছে তার একমাত্র উপায় কি জানিস? একমাত্র উপায় হচ্ছে নান্য পন্থা বিদ্যতে হয়নায়। ওই পথেই তোমাকে যেতে হবে। So rather than piecemealing the problems, rather than piecemealing the crisis, if we have a holistic solution mechanism that I was, probably ill-defined, I probably define it properly, let us try that, that when a problem comes to my life, this is what I do. And it can be problem A through problem Z, I don't know. It can be many of these. But I know কেননা ঠাকুর বললেন কি ইন এ ভেরি প্রোফাউন্ড ভার্স, ইন্ডিয়ান ভার্স, কি সর্ব সমস্যার সমাধান জানিস ইষ্ট প্রতিষ্ঠান। So if we establish the interest of Sri Sri Thakur, his interest is nothing but active collection of men and women and to send them to Sri Sri Thakur's way. Why? So that they can solve their own problems, they can solve their problems of their children, of their grandchildren, generations to come. Not only that, Surya Prakash, I was told by a Brahmin Ritik Devata of our ashram that Sri Sri Thakur jara ishtobhriti kore, those who offer daily offering to Sri Sri Thakur, like something like Nikumbhila Yagna that Ravan used to do. What happens is 7 generations prior and 7 generations following generations, all of them would be aroused to a higher elevation. They will never have to go down. They will never have to bog down. So I think at the tail end of your questions, the central piece that I am trying to focus is, if I do not have Sri Sri Thakur in my life, let me do one thing. If I have not been initiated in the holy name of Sri Sri Thakur, let me try to find where can I do that sort of thing. Because Sri Sri Thakur created this mechanism or this platform where Sri Sri Thakur says that একটা ইন্টারেস্টিং গল্প আছে যে শ্রী শ্রী ঠাকুর কাউকে ফেলতেন না। Sri Sri Thakur used to go by Digoria Pahad. It's slightly west from our ashram, and he used to go there by the valley of the Digoria mountain with all his stalwarts, devotees and all that, simply because Sri Sri Thakur used to love seeing trains passing by Josidi station. And one day, Pujaniya Keshtoda asked Sri Sri Thakur that, Thakur, all the trains you have seen, Punjab Mail, Delhi Mail, Bombay Mail and all that, what is the most favorite train in your mind? Sri Sri Thakur said, I love Samastipur passenger. Then everybody started laughing. Sri Sri Thakur says, husband na, you know the beauty of Samastipur passenger? It does not forsake anyone. ও সব স্টেশনে থামে. He stops in every train. He does not forsake any passenger. Just like that, Parampita, when Parampurush comes, he descends with one express desire or anticipation, so that he can even elevate a soul like me into super enrichment. Many of my friends in Atlanta, Georgia ask me that I have never seen you stressed, I have never seen you worried, I have never seen you quarrelsome to anyone or be rude to others. How is that possible? So I did not cultivate any of these practices. I cultivated Sri Sri Thakur's golden rule of Jojon Jajon Ishtobhriti, Shostoyani Sodachar in my broken way. And even with that 1% following, if I can achieve a blissful life, Surjo Bhai, I think all of us can try to do that. And because I know that when you become a follower, you guys become a follower, you will become a much better follower than I am. Because intrinsically, I am not a good student. Surya Prakash Bhai is a leader in the country for learning and development segment. and I could not even become a student of my life. Jai Guru, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Basu, for your kind words. And I think it's very, very profound. I think I'm reminded of something, what Sisi Thakur says. He says, the master is the materialized form of bliss. So, master is the source of bliss. And you have the source of bliss with you. And you have experienced a stress free life, a happy life, an integrated, cohesive, harmonious life along with your environment. You have experienced that every day in the last so many decades. Excellent narrative. We would now open it up for the audience to ask questions. We actually have about 5 minutes or so. We may be able to take up about a couple of questions. So I would now request our host, our admin team to bring up the questions on the screen, and then we would request Mr. Basu to answer the question. The first question is from um, Mr. Swarup Chakrabarti, Dr. Swarup Chakrabarti, and his question is: how do you understand when faced with two works, both good work at the same time, which to choose to avoid go between?
I'll tell you, Sarubda, thank you very much for a very thought invoking question. The only problem is I am not intellectually geared to answer your quest. But I think one thing happened in my life. So I asked the same question to Pujaniya Sipaida long time ago. That Sipaida amar erokom hoy. So in the morning, I was committed to go to a satsang. And in the evening, somebody told me that I have to go to 68 Surjo Sen Street, which is the Calcutta epicenter of satsang, to do some other work. Now, both are actually connected to Sisi Thakur's work, both good works, like Swarupda is asking. So, which one I should follow? Sipaida said, "Eta bujhte parlen na? You should go to establish যেখানে বৃহত্তর ইষ্ট স্বার্থ প্রতিষ্ঠা হয় সেইটাই হচ্ছে আপনার করণীয়। বৃহত্তর ইষ্ট স্বার্থ করলে where you said in Konnagor যে আমি এই মন্দিরে যাব, সৎসঙ্গে যাব in the evening, but you could not make it because you had to go to 68 Surjo Sen Street. I think it is a bigger establishment of Ishto or Mongol. That will be your thing to do." তো দেখেন কিরকম তিনি পূজনীয় সিপাহীদা আমাকে আরেকবার সুন্দরভাবে বাঁচিয়েছিলেন। I came from America. By the way, Surjoda, do we have to hard stop in 5 minutes?
No,
Or
we
can
can
we?
continue, extend it by 5-6 minutes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So beautifully, I just want to mention that because it happened to my life. So I came with all my luggages and everything in an auto in Thakurbadi. And Pujaniya Sipaida was waiting in the between the two gates of the new guest house, near new guest house. And so I took down my stuff, and some friends were helping me to get my stuff in my room. And Pujaniya Sipaida asked me, "Je Baba bose achen, jan pranam koren ge?" So I said, "Age ami ei amar bhishon 24 ঘন্টা আমি জার্নি করেছি, আমি ভীষণ টায়ার্ড। So I'll just go to the bathroom, just wash my hand and face, and keep my luggage, and then I go to offer my obeisance to Acharya Dev." সিপাহীদা বললেন, "এই তো, এটা খুব ভুল করছেন। আমাদের শাস্ত্রে কি লেখা আছে জানেন? গুরুকে ধুলি পায়ে প্রণাম করতে হয়, গুরুকে ধুলি পায়ে দর্শন করতে হয়। এক্ষুনি যান। Forget about your dirty clothing, forget about your dirty feet, forget about your dirty health. I mean, not health, the persona and all that. Just go and offer your obeisance. তো ওইটা দেখেন, এইটাও গো বিটুইন। আমি ভাবছিলাম যে নইলে আমার মাল চুরি হয়ে যাবে। আমি ভাবছি যে আমি ওখানে মাল যদি আমি ঘরে না ঢোকাই, তাহলে আমার মাল চুরি হয়ে যাবে। আর এইটা যে আমি করলাম না, এই যে বৃহত্তর ইষ্ট স্বার্থ প্রতিষ্ঠা করলাম, for momentarily I forgot about my luggages and I went to offer my obeisance to Sri Sri Dada, and Pujaniya Shipaida taught me the lesson of life, lifetime.
Wonderful, wonderful, Mr. Basu. We will now bring up the second question. Please bring up the second question on screen. This question is from Shashwat. Shashwat is asking how to cope with breakup stress, very common in today's life. I think
So,
he's referring to, yeah, breakup, possibly when you are in love with somebody, or maybe a marriage breakup. That's what I'm assuming from his question.
right.
Mr. Basu, if you can attempt to answer this question.
So, any breakup is actually the harbinger of Satan. To avoid breakup, we need to, ঠাকুর বলতেন কাউকে ভালোবাসা মানে কি জানো? ভালোতে বাস করা। To reside in his welfare, তাকে নাকি ভালোবাসা বলে। শ্রী শ্রী ঠাকুর বলতেন যে ভালোবাসার টান আনে সবলতা, জীবনে উত্থান। So if I love that person, whether he is my child, my spouse, or my significant other, I need to go to the very bottom of it, go to the very root of it, and try to annihilate the root cause of the problem by sincerely loving him. Thakur said, love him sincerely, love will jump upon you. তোমাকে ভালোবাসার জন্য কাঁদতে হবে না। You will not only love, but you will be loved. That is a anemic problem of America. That Ashish, I love my spouse. Ashish, I love my wife, but I am being threatened having to lose her. What does your guru say about it? I said, I don't know what he says about it, but I can only tell you that go to the very bottom. Love her sincerely. Love means never having to say you are sorry. Love means establishing things that you can protect and nurture and nourish his or her interest. Shashwat bhai, I don't know if I could answer your question properly, but I will be delighted to have Shashwat bhai a phone call from you if you have any personal issues or whatever, and we will discuss this in detail, because this is a very architecturally structured program. We cannot go beyond the perimeters of the minutes. So although I would like to pursue these discourses, it's a beautiful alochana thing going on with my broken mind, but with thought-provoking questions. But please feel free to call me. You can get my phone number from either Orgho Bhai or Surya Prakash Bhai. Jai Guru.
Thank you. It's so kind of you, Mr. Basu. I'm sure Saswat will take a cue from that. I think we have time for just one more question, and I will request the next question, the last question, to be up on the screen. I think this question is from Manishda, Mr. Manish Punjabi, and his question is, does ambition lead to stress? Great question. Over to you, Mr. Basu.
It indeed is a great question. So, the ambition actually, if we are thinking in a fragmented manner, what ambition does is it can disregard my environment, it can disregard my source of welfare, my source of love, just for the just for the pursuit of ambition. When I was a solution architect of an American health enterprise company, um, despite doing all the philosophical work in the background, for some reason, they had put a bottom line for me. They had put that you have to bring $2 million every 6 months to the enterprise. We love your being philosophical. We love your being helping the enterprise, and talking in different forums and all that. That's beautiful. But you have to bring $2 million in our exchequer. That ambition was indeed leading me to stress. There is no doubt about it. Because at times when I was thinking about how to get that money in the exchequer, $2 million every 6 months is not a joke. I was disregarding my family. My wife was asking me something I could not hear, literally could not hear. So, yes, the answer is yes. But if we can channelize, like what Surya Prakash Bhai was suggesting, if we can channelize any stress into a holistic, tunnel of enlightenment, then I think it is a better idea. I could not get rid of that $2 million pursuit. But I think at one point I thought that if I pursue the holistic way of life, at the same time, if I also pursue the generation of $2 million every 6 months, what is the problem? So that's a positive thought. But this monetization principle of American business, and unfortunately, whatever America does, India has to do it. Whatever America does, England has to do it. Whatever America does, Germany has to do it. Unfortunately, this is the pattern we see in our life. But this monetization concept is so profoundly uh, hurting our lives. We are ignoring our families. We are ignoring our members of friends. We are ignoring our society. We are ignoring my neighbors just to satisfy the bottom line. Jai Guru Ma, I don't know if I could answer your question. Once again, if you give me a call personally, I would be delighted to talking to you.
No, great response. I think that was very, very profound. Um, thank you, Mr. Basu, for this beautiful, enlightening session with all of us. And as we promised our audience that we will bring you a spiritual practitioner, and spirituality unravels the cause of everything. And you have gone to the root cause of this problem. You have talked about why we come under stress. And you have called out some very, very valid, strong causes of stress, some of them being go between greed, our lack of attachment, our sometimes unnecessary ambition to go after something, and ignoring everything else in our life. And you have also given us the key to this problem, the remedy to this malady or this problem: love to the superior beloved, service to the superior beloved, trying at all times to establish the superior beloved in your life. That was really profound, very thought provoking, very, very enlightening and relevant in today's times. Truly a very different perspective to stress management. I think a perspective that today in many parts of the world, in organizations and enterprises and in social sphere, many do not understand do not realize the importance of this. And today you have brought out in a very succinct manner the importance of attachment towards the superior beloved, which can really help us drive away stress from our life. Thank you, Mr. Basu, once again. We are really grateful to you for joining us today in this session and enlightening all of us. Dear audience, we would like to thank you for joining us today. Do let us know the topics that you would want us to bring to this forum, topics that would concern you, that is bothering you, that you would like to know more about. We would do our best to bring in experts like Mr. Basu who can talk about and throw light on some of those important facets of life. Thank you very much once again, Mr. Basu. Thank you very much, the audience. Wish you all a great day, a great evening, depending on wherever you are. Namaskar.